I don't know. There's a couple. Do you have one that's jumping out of you? If
Yeah,
not,
let's talk to Karol in Europe has evidence
do
for
it.
heaven and hell.
I like that. I wanna know about this. Karol, he, him over in Europe. What do you have for us today?
Hello, nice to hear you guys.
Yeah.
I am calling here because I think I have a really good argument for the existence of heaven and hell. But as I want to say, it's only argument. It's not real evidence, so it's not like 100%. But I would say that this argument is so good that the chance of heaven and hell being real is way more than 50%.
Can I stop you just real quick, Karol? Because I want to make sure that you and I are on the same page here. To me, what it sounded like you just said is that you're going to give us an argument here for heaven and hell that isn't 100%, but is pretty darn good. But it sounded like you admitted that if there was evidence, if there was some type of physical evidence to back it up, it would make it better. Are we on the same page there?
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, cool. Yeah. What's the argument?
Okay. First, my argument depends on several conditions. So if these conditions are not true, then heaven and hell might not, but they still might be real. But if all the conditions are true, then it means that heaven and hell are real. So the percentage then depends on those conditions. So if it will be okay, I would ask you that I would go with you through all these conditions, and if you would agree with me,
how many conditions are there, Karol? Just for time's sake, we want to make sure we get to as many as possible.
Like 3 or 4 conditions.
Okay, give it to him quick. Yeah.
Okay.
Your top 3. Give us your top 3 conditions. Yeah.
They are time dependent, so I have to first take the first one, is that humanity will survive into the future, and we will survive for long enough to colonize the universe and the galaxy. Would you agree with me that this is something that's likely to happen?
I don't know how exactly you put a statistic on that. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know how exactly you put a probability on whether or not humans will be around at 500,000 years from now. But like, I mean, maybe I think if we live for another 500,000 years, we'll probably make it to Mars eventually. But I don't know how we put a 70-30 or 50-50 on that.
That's
right?
A pretty strong conjecture, but go ahead.
Keep going, Karol. But
what is your personal opinion? Do you think this is something that's more likely than 50%?
I don't know that I have an opinion on it because I don't feel like I have enough information either way.
I'm not interested in playing that game. Just, I don't want to put a percentage on something that's just highly conjectural like that.
I will move on. I will move on to another condition. If we assume that this will happen and humanity will really survive and we will colonize the universe, then humanity will probably not go extinct, since we will be living on multiple planets, and we will live for millions and billions of years. And the other condition is that if we will live for the millions and billions of years, we will develop some really incredible technology. You could agree with me or not that the technology that I'm talking about specifically would be a technology.
So again, there's some really. Yes. Hang on just a second, Karol. There's a couple of things that, like, I think on a really basic intuitive level, I think most people are going to be like, well, look at all the cool stuff humans have done so far. Give us another insert amount of time here and we'll probably do even cooler stuff. I guess, probably, maybe. But again, I just don't know that we have anything whatsoever to really help us decide how likely that is, right? But also, and this is just, and please, evolutionary biologists, correct me out there aren't many species that seem to live around for like 5 billion years, right? Like, humans seem to have only been around as a species for like 250,000, right? Like 250K at most. If we make it another million years, like we may not be people anymore. Like we may not be humans. We may be something totally different that still, you know, maybe has 5 fingers and toes or whatever. But
I completely agree with that they might evolve into something else. But even if we do, still, I think my condition would still qualify for these 2 parts, even if we evolve into something more and something else.
Again, I think at like the most basic level of intuition, I think most people are going to say, based on what we've looked around and we've done in our short lifetimes, it seems likely that as human beings live on, the technology will become more and more cool, unless we just have some major catastrophe that reverts us back. But I don't know that again, I don't think there's any way to put a number on that, and I don't know that that conclusion is even that valuable. I don't know that that's anything more than just the actual mundane existence of life.
I guess maybe cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Karol, cut to the chase. Seems like you're trying to develop several conditions that will force us to say that, yeah, you're right. It must be the only conclusion we could come to is that there's a heaven and hell. So I guess cut to the chase. What is your basic premise here?
My basic premise is that the technology, the future humans will develop, and if they will have millions and billions yet to do the technology, will be technology to scan human brains, scan human consciousness, and put us into some any kind of virtual reality they would want to. And another technology that they might develop in such a really long time could be technology to look into the past and see their ancestors see us, and they could see any living person that they ever could. And if they wanted to, they had the opportunity to copy our consciousness from the past and put our consciousness into the future, into any simulated reality that they could develop. And
Karol, I think this is Karol. Hang on just a sec. I think this is a really. Don't get me wrong. I think this is something. Hey, you and I sit down with a pint and chit chat about this till the wee hours of the morning. I'm all for that. And hey, if you wrote a graphic novel on this, I'd probably read it.
Sounds like a great movie.
Yeah, absolutely. A very interesting thought for sure. But again, we're at the point now in this kind of argument from you where it feels like there's already so much stuff that we have problems with, and we don't really have a good way of determining which one is more likely. And so at this point, it's kind of like, well, yeah, I guess if we grant the thing of like human beings live for another billion years, and if we grant the thing of like human beings are going to colonize like every rock in the galaxy or whatever, and if all these other fantastical things happen, well, then probably like heaven and hell and God. And to me, that's just like
that's huge.
Yeah,
that's a huge leap.
Right. Even with all those other leaps in between, that one is still a pretty big one.
The thing about the call note here is you think you have evidence of heaven and hell. What you've given us is a bunch of conjecture, which says this could happen and this could happen, and I think this will happen, and if this happens, then this could be true. That is a far leap from anything remotely like evidence.
Yeah. And I think that it sounds almost as if where you were at the end there in terms of getting to what your conception of heaven and hell is, it's very, very far removed from the vast majority of believers, whether Christian or former Christian or Muslim or Hindu, like it's far away from that in such a
really far removed from what people believe in, because whatever people believe in right now, they can make it into the reality. They believe in a Christian, Muslim God, whatever, and they might make it into
but that what you're saying is that by a bunch of people just creating a virtual simulation that they're pretty sure is what heaven is, like that means heaven's real. And that's not right. That isn't how we do stuff when it comes to actually understanding what is true about the world around us. You don't get to say that if we stack all of these you know, invisible, non-material ghost blocks together, we can build a ghost skyscraper. And if we build a ghost skyscraper, then we can put, you know, a unicorn helicopter on the top. Like you don't get to do that, right? Like as much as fun as it is to go through all of that and say, wow, what would that be like? It isn't. We're granting when we're doing that.
Yeah.
We're saying that isn't the world that we live in already, you know?
Yes, but my argument is that, yes, I'm talking maybe about possibilities in the future, but the implication for us is that if it's possibility in the future, for us it will be actual reality. If you will die right now, and your consciousness will die right now, you might immediately wake up into the future that I just described. And for you, it's
right. But we might also immediately wake up on the tip of a unicorn's horn as it flies through space and farts bubbles, right?
Karol,
like,
you're just throwing out a bunch of maybes and mights, and this could happen and that could happen, and it's a science fiction movie, and let's just call it what it is. But it is not evidence. And Karol, we on this show are interested in talking about things that have to do with evidence and proof. And what you've given us is anything but that. Yeah. So I appreciate the call, and it's interesting to talk about. And we could all sit here and, like Secular said, we could have some drinks and talk about this into the night, and fantasize about some world that we want to create in our minds. But it is not evidence of heaven or hell. So I'm sorry. I appreciate the call. I mean, it was fun talking to you, but we're going to probably move on to some other calls we have.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Karol. And, you know, go hang out in the Atheist Theist debate, you know, the fan run group. I mean, please, and cut your teeth some more and come up with some stuff. You know, I'm not saying anything is or isn't possible 1,000 years from now, but if we're saying it's 1,000 years from now before we get that evidence, well, that definitely really does not concern me.
That has nothing to do with right here and now or anybody. And it's just a bunch of crazy ideas. I mean, I'm sorry. I've got no time for those conversations. I'm sorry.
I just don't.